And now living on the border in peacetime, it's quite a different situation. It's actually quite novel to be in the situation that I'm in personally. I'm living in the north and working in the south. Um, from a professional point of view, the wages in the south are higher than they would be in the north. So I have the novelty of working in the south and getting a higher salary than it would be if I was working in the north. And also you have the novelty of in the border region now, where you can take advantage of the economic situation on either side. At the minute, the fuel prices are cheaper in the south than the north, so you can fill up your car in the south. Whereas in previous times, it used to be that the cost of groceries and fuel at times was cheaper in the north, and now there's a open border where we can cross over without any intimidation, without any customs. So all this is helps make a better quality of life on the border region at the minute. My main concern with living on the border during a Brexit situation is the possibility of the border region returning to the way it was previously, with um, British Army patrols on it and custom patrols. It's a very intimidating situation that nobody in the border region, north or south, would want to see brought back in again. Um, Obviously, there's a fear that the Troubles could be resurrected because there's intimidation from British Army and bringing up old wounds from prior years for certain people, and nobody wants to see that happening again. And I suppose from an economic point of view, I think it's imperative that the border region doesn't go back to that. That there is still free trade between the north and the south, between the UK and the Republic of Ireland, especially during the unsure times of coronavirus, when a lot of businesses are suffering and have suffered badly. That this would be an extra burden upon them if they were to have to maybe pay a different kind of import duty or taxes to send stock to the UK, or even the fact that if they have to do a lot more administration work to get their product into the UK. And then if there's checkpoints and verification and an awful lot of that, I think that it needs to be made as easy as possible for businesses to to, um, to sell their product in the UK, especially in the current times. I suppose the physical border, when I was growing up, would have been a quite intimidating place to cross over. Um, Living in Monaghan, and my parents are both from Tyrone, we had to travel across the border regularly to go and visit relatives and family. So we had to pass through two junctures to go across the border. So one, you had the customs, and secondly, you had the British Army border control. Um, the British Army border control is quite intimidating. They're all standing there with guns, and you had to pass through, and your family were all interrogated. I suppose as children we weren't interrogated as such, but my parents would have been interrogated, and at times then your car would be taken in and physically taken apart and everything taken out of it to check that there was nothing in it that shouldn't have been, as far as like guns or weapons are concerned. Um, and then secondly, then coming across the border, then going across, but the customs, you were coming from the north back into the south again, the customs would always stop you and search your car for goods that that you hadn't purchased and weren't paying VAT on. And that was also intimidating because you had the chance of that if you were trying to take something across, that your goods would be taken off you. I remember one instance in particular where my uncle had given us. Hold on. I remember one instance in particular where my uncle had given us a small colour television, a 14-inch television. So we all sat in the back of the car as children with blankets over the television at our feet, pretending to sleep, so the customs wouldn't annoy us while we were crossing the border, and we could get it across. And that was quite a nervous time to do something as simple as that. And now everything has changed. Oh, sorry. Personally, the displaying of flags in the north of Ireland doesn't bother me. The flags are just a representation of different cultures that live in our society, and I think from somebody that lives in the border region, it's important to recognise all of those different cultures. I come from a nationalist background, and I as much as I disagree with the loyalist rhetoric or whatever way they see the North the way it should be, it's important to recognise that they have an opinion, and it's important that they recognise that the nationalists have an opinion, and that we're all entitled to display flags and voice our opinions without going back to any kind of military warfare like there was previously. So, and I think the Northern Ireland Executive, for all their differences, they are trying within reason to put all their differences aside. They're like the First Minister and the Deputy First Minister now are nationalist and loyalist, and they're doing their best to work together for the better of all the people. There's still a lot of barriers to be broken down, but a mutual respect is very important from both sides.